Welcome to the To The Point podcast. Now here's your host for To The Point, John Brake.
Thank you for joining us for To The Point episode 20. If you're watching, listening, however you're doing this, please, we want to ask you to share this with people. So share the YouTube link, share the podcast, whatever. Rate and review that as well. And we just want to thank you guys for being here with it. I'm John.
I'm Kelly.
And this is To The Point episode 20. Also, we've got, as you can see if you're watching the video, we've got a group with us of weirdos here. So I thought it might be best to start with just some introductions, and then I'll kind of kick off what we're going to be talking about today.
Is there a reason why we gave the girls all the short stools?
They requested them.
They requested the short stools.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure we're good on that.
So maybe let's start with you.
Great. I'm Bethany. What are we saying?
Just saying, like, who you are, why you're here, what's going on.
I'm here because they told me to be here.
Awesome.
I'm just kidding.
What do you do?
Well, I am on the team for the music team. I play bass and help Ethan out occasionally, and we just kind of serve wherever. But music is our...
That's where it's at.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
I'm Ethan. I'm the worship pastor here, and love to lead people into worship, and that's what we're talking about today, so that's why I'm here.
I'm Nathan, and I'm the executive pastor here, formerly the worship pastor here, and I am just thankful that we get the opportunity to do what we do. It's a joy to do this.
I'm Carrie, and I serve in LP worship and also with our kids ministry, LP Kids.
Awesome. So, like I said, this is episode 20, and we thought it would be great for this episode to just basically do like a little worship Q&A where we talk to the core of our worship team and just discuss what worship is. I mean, we know that worship is beyond what we do on a Sunday morning. It's not just that, but it is important that we do kind of talk about this and look at this. Some of you guys know, just coming to church and seeing what we've been talking about through directional discipleship and through our first series of the year, Fresh Start, where we got to talk about the directions of the church. Upward is the first. It's the one of the most important ways that we can point our lives up to Him. And so we thought that talking about this through that lens of how do we point our lives upward to God through Christ, through worship, and through every opportunity to give Him praise and glory and honor. We thought it would be great to get to have that conversation all together.
Yeah, our mission statement, as you know, if you've been coming to Life Point for any time at all, is that we exist to give glory to God and love as many people to Jesus as we can before we die, period. And we say it that way for a reason. We actually borrowed from other documents all of our worship, all of our mission statement. But that first part, this part that we exist to give glory to God, actually comes from I can't remember things. I'm medicated, but it comes from, I think it's the Second Western Small Catechism. I'll clarify this somewhere along the way, but it says this, that man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And that's what we are here for. And part of that, and part of the way we do that is absolutely through our worship. And we're going to get into a lot of the aspects of what worship is and what worship's about. But the Christian needs to know that you exist for God, not for yourself. God does not exist for you. A lot of, I think, wrong theology exists out there today as to why we're here, what our purpose on this earth is, why God made us, and all of those things. But we need to understand that God created us for His pleasure, and we will never have any satisfaction or peace or joy in life like we should until we get that, until we start there. There's a lot of things that we can enjoy in life, but none of it will give us the depth of joy that understanding our place before the Lord will. And that's, I think, one of those center stones, one of those foundational pieces of what it means to actually worship.
So if you're listening or watching this and you think I've got worship down pat, think again. We can all do a little more. We can all dig a little deeper in this stuff. When we come in on Sunday mornings, we might think that if we've got our hands raised the highest or our voices are the loudest, that is giving him the most glory and that we've got that nailed. But we know that this is something that goes through our entire lives, whether we're in this room or not. And so that's kind of what these questions that we're going to be kind of talking through are framed around. How do we take worship into our entire lives? How do we point our whole life upward to God, to glorify God? So I thought it might be cool, I don't know, just take a couple of minutes and talk about how the worship team came to be, like in the form that it is, because I wasn't here for that part of Life Point. I don't know if that's something that we could talk about for just a couple minutes to give everybody kind of a framework for the people that lead them in worship week in and week out.
Yeah, we probably need to preface just a little bit with that the four of us are actually all family.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we are all related.
Sister.
These two sisters go back to last year's Christmas program, or don't.
That was a time in my life I'd like to forget.
So what we're saying is you should definitely, and we'll probably put a link to it in the show notes, you should definitely check it out.
We probably need to include a picture of that.
Gosh. Oh gosh. But these two on our ends are sisters. And Ethan and I decided that we fell in love with one of them, each of us. And
wait. Let me make it clear.
One? What is
they each fell in love with a different one.
A different one. That's correct.
They didn't fall in love with the same one.
Yeah,
So
we married the ones that we fell in love with also.
Right.
That's good. It wasn't.
We didn't switch. So when I met Bethany, she was 10, and Carrie and I were in college at Southwest Baptist University in Bolivar. And we met in the choir room, singing choir together. And so if we go all the way back to that, we started leading worship in the youth group at the church that we were attending. And I actually learned to play the guitar out of a desire just to lead that group in worship. I had sung all my life. I played the piano a little bit, but I can't even play anything at all right now.
I can't either.
And so I started doing that. We started leading. Bethany came into that group, and Ethan came in and out of that group, but then stayed. And so really the desire to lead in worship came out of just seeing a need. And seeing that, okay, God, this is where you want me to serve right now. I'm 21 years old, 22 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know that these kids need to know you more. And so we started learning that, started working with that. And as Ethan and Bethany started getting older and they started playing instruments, and Bethany started playing bass, which her dad played bass, and so that kind of was a good fit.
Dad played bass.
And Mama didn't sing tenor.
She didn't sing tenor. She was a soprano.
And then Ethan started dating Bethany in high school, and come to find out he could play the guitar and just wail on it. And so I'm like, hey, you need to come and play with our youth band. And so that's really how this all started, was just the desire to lead people in worship from, back in the early 2000s was when that was. And when we started Life Point 10 years ago, it just kind of fell into place.
Right.
There really wasn't this big vote. There wasn't a big decision. It was just like, this is what we're going to do. And we had different piano players, and we had different drummers, and we had different people that we worked with at the beginning. But it really started to come together just as a desire to continue to grow this church and figure out what this became. So for a lot of years, we've been setting up for what Kelly has to say.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We've been preparing.
Yeah, we've been preparing people's hearts for the message. And I know a lot of times Kelly and I we would talk, over my lunch, because I didn't work here at the time, and so there was a lot of times where Kelly and I would not even talk, but it would always come together on Sunday.
Right.
the songs would fit perfectly with what he was thinking, with where his heart was going, and I thank God for that. I thank God for his ability to do that in people, and really I think, and kind of jump in here when you can, but I think probably 4 or 5 years ago was when it really hit that we can't continue to just do this. There was 6 of us that really kind of locked in to be the Life Point band.
Right.
And then we started to realize that this wasn't sustainable. This wasn't what we were called to do. We weren't called to become this just a band that you would see that would go on tour. Like, we had a lot of opportunities to go and play for different events and different things, but we chose to kind of stay home and stay here. And then we started realizing that it was time to make some changes. And so what you see today is really the start and the progression of passing this on to more people, passing this desire to lead people in worship and do what we do has really seeing the next generation come up and learn to play instruments and learn to do things that will glorify God in this way. Seeing some older people come back to their love for music that they had but didn't know if they could still use. There's been just such an awesome way that has come together, and kind of having that all skate mentality, that just here's what we do, here's how we do it, and here's how we're going to plug you in. It's been really fun to watch how that has happened.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the from the start, like just attending here, and any of you guys who watch online or have been to our services, you know, like the multi-generational, just kind of all over the mapness of the worship team, and that's an amazing testament to your guys' leadership and to just the church that we have, that just is sort of a welcome home. No perfect person, no perfect people allowed. I'm reading the signs out there. Come as you are. That culture that we have, it is really expressed from the moment you come in our doors and you are a part of the songs we're singing. You can see that from the start. Does anybody else have anything they want to add on the kind of origins of the worship team? I think Nathan pretty much nailed it. Yeah.
I don't want to hog it.
All is covered.
I don't want to hog it though. So.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I would say at the beginning, it was that kind of core group band, because that's kind of what it had to be. In the beginning, we, me included, we all had other full-time jobs. And so we had to go to work, and we didn't have a lot of time to develop or practice or do anything.
Our idea of practice was, hey guys, it's Sunday morning. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. Service starts at 9. Be there by 7:30.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to sing today?
Yeah.
There was some of that too.
And so it was flying by the seat of the pants, but it was also spirit led. And that's one of the things that I think has been a hallmark of our ministry here, is that we have strived to be in line with the Spirit. And that's how, in a busy week, before I had a preaching calendar that I, set up months in advance, that I shared with the team, and I said, this is what we're going to preach on this day, and this is where this is coming from, so you can have an idea of what maybe kind of the vein of where we're heading in the direction. We didn't do that at all, and there's nothing wrong with the level of organization we have today. I think it's really, really good. But back then, we had to say, okay, God, bring it together, because I've got to work 60 hours this week and I don't have time to put extra meetings in place, to sit with Nathan. Nathan doesn't have time to get a band together and have, a 2-hour practice on Thursday night. And it was just, let's give it the best we can for the Lord and be lockstep with Him and just see what happens. And God used that in powerful ways.
Well, I think that is actually a great segue. If we want to, I'll pose the first question for you guys to just get your thoughts on it. But I think that comes out of living lives pointed upward toward God, because as you're working these other jobs, for anybody out there, we talk about this a lot, every member, a minister, where you're at, whatever job that you're working, whatever career path you're on, you have the ability to live a full life of worship to God, and you can connect with people that we can't always connect with. You can connect with people that the person next to you at work can't connect with. You have a mission. You have a purpose here to spread the gospel wherever you're at. And I think that's what was happening at that time. I mean, that's still what's happening.
Yeah.
And that comes down to, okay, well, are we going to limit worship to just what happens on the weekend, or are we going to actually live a life of this? So the first question is, what does worship mean to you? So it might seem like a simple question, but what does that mean to you?
I'm super passionate about this because this is kind of part of my testimony. And so I think the best way to address that is what worship isn't first. It's not just getting in your car and turning on Spirit FM and listening to praise and worship music. I hate when that phrase came out, that praise and worship genre. I hated that because then people, it changed the idea of what worship really is. Like, it's just music. It's totally not. That's part of it, but it's not limited to that. It's not limited to the music experience that we have here on Sunday mornings and on Wednesday nights at both of our campuses. And so I would say to everybody, just open your mind for a minute, because I think worship is when you wake up daily and you die to self, because like Kelly said earlier, we're made to worship something, and so you have to, first thing in the mornings, just die to self and give your day to God, and let everything you do give glory to Him. And that doesn't mean just church stuff. You don't have to talk about God all the time, and you don't have to listen to Christian music all the time. It's good things can be God things, and things that you delight in can be worship. I was just thinking about this summer, we pulled together all of our money, everybody in our family, and we bought this little pool, and we go out and we go swim and we have fun together as a family. That's worship to me. That's a good God honoring thing that we do. And I think it's important for us to realize that, again, worship is not.
Do you sing in the pool?
Heck yeah, we do.
Okay, it's worship.
Yeah, of
then
course
it's worship.
we do.
There you
Sing
go.
your praise and worship songs.
We can. We don't, but we can. And I do think it's really important that when we see the word worship, we just automatically think church or music experience. It's totally not that. It's when everything you do always points back to God. The Bible talks about how whatever you do, if you eat, drink, or whatever you do, make sure that you're giving God the glory. And I think that's what it is. It's in conversations. It's in relationships. It's in the food we eat. It's in the activities we partake in, the movies we watch, the music we listen to. And a lot of times, people are shocked, when we shared some of our favorite songs. They're not Christian songs, but we delight in those songs. They're good songs. And I think that's a good thing. I think that can be part of worship. And so just as long as everything always points back to God, giving God the glory, I think that's what worship is.
Amen. That's good. Anyone else?
Restate the question.
What does worship mean to you?
Well, yesterday as a staff, we were in a conference, just watching a conference because we can't go during this season. But one of the quotes that I pulled out of that, and I can't remember who he was quoting. He was quoting Chris Hodges was quoting someone else, but. A person that, hold on, I've already messed it up. A person that starts their day on their face can't fall from that position.
Yeah, that's good.
And when we start our day, and that doesn't mean we have to have our devotional that morning, or it doesn't mean we have to spend an hour or 30 minutes of your day, of the first part of your day, in that devotional time to God. But I think it's very critical to spend the first few words that you say to God, because He's our creator and He's the first person that sees us wake up. Even if you're in bed with your spouse, for me, I get up before Bethany every single day. So He's the first being that I have an interaction with. I think it's critical for us to give our first breath and our first amount of life that we're giving to the rest of the world to Him, because He is just the one who created us. And me and John were talking. I don't remember where you got this, but we talk about tithe in church a lot and what that looks like, and it's 10% of our money and all that stuff. But what does it look like to give 10% of our time to God? Yeah.
10% of all of us.
Yeah. What does it look like to tithe our time, to tithe our resources, to tithe just our belongings? It doesn't necessarily have to be money. I mean, we need to tithe our money, but it's not just money. It's everything about us. It's tithing ourselves to God. And time is a big thing. And so I think it's critical that we start our day with that. And giving our time to God is what worship truly is. It's not just music, and it's not just whatever you think worship is. The time that we spend in praise, that's tithing to God. And so I don't remember, somebody just said a quote here in our prayer meeting before about praise, but basically we just need to be praising God. It's thanking Him for the things that we have.
Praise is good manners.
Yeah, that's it. Praise is just good manners to God. Yeah. And I think that's just critical in worship, because what worship does, what the music section of, and why people refer to that as worship, the music section of your service, what that does in that moment is aligning everybody's heart in the room with where the message is going, and what we're ultimately supposed to be doing anyway is aligning ourselves with God and looking up, and not looking around, but looking up. And that's why we lift our hands in church, is to just say, God, you are above me, and I'm giving all of my focus to you in this moment. I'm soaking in the words that they're singing, and I'm preaching that, and I'm prophesying that over my own life, because right now I just want to be in line with you. And that's what I think, those first words that we speak over our life every morning to God. It's a prophecy of, I just want to be in line with you today, and I need your help to get through this day. And if we can do that, that's just simple. The Lord's Prayer, we've said that for thousands of years, but it's just simple. It's just for us to align ourselves with God. Now, that's what worship just really is. It's just being in alignment with Him.
And think about how much of our time and how much of our day, you guys listening and watching for sure, I mean, we all know how many days we wake up behind, how many days we wake up just to rush out the door to get the day started. That happens to me all the time, But to be able to create that space at the beginning of your day, at the beginning of your morning, I mean, we all know how powerful it is to spend that time in the morning in the Bible, in prayer, or just like going for a walk, or whatever, drinking a cup of coffee and hanging out for a few minutes, and just having that time before you rush into your day. And think about even on Sunday mornings, like we think of that worship time, because we know how stressful Sunday mornings can be with kids and rushing around, and maybe you get in a fight with your spouse before you leave and you got to rush in. And we're all coming in with the baggage of the world. All of this, the whole week that we've spent kind of, drifting around a little bit. Maybe we don't have those disciplines down pat, or we've kind of wavered away from those, kind of drifted away from those. But we get to come in here and we get to, like you said, align. Okay, well, maybe all this stuff happened, but it's right now we can come together.
And I think our job to kind of go along with that, I think our job as worship leaders has been to try to encourage it to go further than just this.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, we can stand up here and jump around and we can emotionally get you engaged with us. I mean, that's part of what I think God has gifted us with and has called us to. I mean, that's part of what
the worship prance.
The worship, we can do that if you want. But I think that making it more than just the emotional side of what happens here, when people, including ourselves, go out these doors and we're walking that first step back in the world, it's our job to hopefully make it portable so that they can worship as they go into the crazy, as we go into the mess, as we go into the world that needs what we just experienced. I think that's been probably the prayer for me for a few years is Lord, make this go out from here. Don't make this just about what happens in this room.
Yeah, because we can all have that that moment, but how are we going to, what are we going to do to turn that into a movement? What are we going to do to actually make that change somebody's
That
life?
emotional experience is going to be like a bonfire that's made of cardboard. It burns really hot, really fast, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
We can't, our worship and our sustainability is not based on that emotional experience. It's got to be based on more than that. More than that.
And we've worked really hard to try to keep that idea of making things portable as a part of every aspect of our service. But even when we wrote the song Courageous, the idea there was not to write a worship song that we would all just sing in church. We have done that and we love that song. The idea was to create a song that someone's going to take with them to the gym, that someone's going to take with them, and whenever they're fighting temptation at work or whatever, we are courageous. We're gonna stand and fight. That was the whole idea of that song. So sometimes we come to a place where we have an experience with Scripture or even with words of a song, and we leave it at church. We wanted something that
Like
people
life
would take with them, and so that was the intentionality even behind the creation of that song. But that's not the only song that we've done here. That's not the only thing that we've done here in order to hopefully help people take this message with them into the world that they're going to encounter every single day. And that's actually, in my mind, as a church leader, as a pastor, everything we do should be to that end, because powerful things happen during sermons. Don't get me wrong. People give their life to Jesus, and it's awesome. But if I'm intentionally not doing something intentionally to help people remember what we talked about, then I'm intentionally allowing that opportunity to be forgotten. I mean, we do. I mean, I can tell you right now, we forget the majority of what we hear. I know it. I forget. I'm the one who wrote it and the one who preached it. I usually forget most of the message. But we've got to put something in place. And that's the beautiful aspect of worship and music, is that it ties not only the theology that makes so much of a difference in our lives, but it ties it to the emotional aspect that God hardwired into us. And whenever we can tie those things together, or the feelings with the thought processes, it gives us a more solid and more firm foundation. This is why worship is such a powerful expression of our faith to God in the church.
That's right.
Well, and I think something else to make it portable, talking about being able to not just have this big experience here and then it's done until the next Sunday. We've had a lot of people, Ethan and I, say, oh man, I just can't worship like you guys, or I can't play an instrument or sing like you, which I'm like, what? No, that's not what it is at all. The reason why we're able to do what we do is because we're in constant conversation with the Lord. Like, that's what part of worship is too, is just, and it's not, I'm not talking like really holy prayer all the time. I'm just talking to God, talking to the Father God. Like, hey God, I'm done with this thing. Can you help me? And I think that's really important, that you just, it doesn't stop here, like what we've been talking about. We have had some of the most, this is crazy, but it's Ethan and Bethany, so just whatever. We have had some of the most powerful experiences with God in our bathroom. And I know that sounds really strange.
Because the acoustics are amazing.
Right? In our old house and in our new house, and together and individually. I mean, it's just, I have had some incredible conversations with God that this just led to this experience and this message from God that prepared me for the week that led to here, And so I think that's really important, that, just have a conversation with God. Just talk to God all day long. Just like little things like, God, man, this was fun. Thank you for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really simple. This is not rocket science. And so to get what we have up here is just
it's having that open communication.
Yeah, all the
it
time.
reminds me of a time when I was driving out on Highway 32. I had no goal other than just to get out of my own head. Yeah. And I wasn't even
corners at 80 miles an hour.
Yes.
Maybe.
Not officially.
Not that we recommend that.
That didn't happen.
But I can remember exactly when I wasn't saying anything to God. I wasn't asking him for anything. I wasn't asking anything from him. I was just trying to get away for a minute. and God showed up. And it honestly scared me for a second, and I'm like, God, is that you? Like, I'm by myself here. But it was such an eye opener at that time, because it had been a rough season. It had been a difficult time, and God was like, okay, you need this right now. And that helps perpetuate that whatever we need to do next here at the church or in my life or whatever it is. So I agree, God can show up in our worship anywhere. And it's not because I have a guitar strapped around my neck. Right. It's because I'm opening my heart to what He has for me.
And see, I think one of the most important things that we can miss as we're talking here about worship is the relational aspect of what this is. It is being sensitive to him speaking back to us. It's allowing that time and that space. I mean, part of the reason why God showed up to you in that moment is there wasn't anybody else to steal your attention. It's creating those opportunities, and that's an important thing, because so much of the time in regards to worship, we lose our focus, we lose our attention when it comes to things, and in fact, we can almost use worship like a drug. We can make it about the feelings that we have in that experience, and we can make it so much about that over the top feeling that we actually forget God. There's a lot of really great worship music that came out in the early 2000s. One of the greatest songs that came out in that time was written by Matt Redman, which he's wrote so many amazing songs. But I think the greatest song of his career spoke to this very fact. And the story goes like this, is that their church was growing by leaps and bounds. They had this amazing worship team. I mean, amazing, world class. Those guys put out albums. They toured. They were amazing, so talented. They had so many people that wanted to be a part of it. And people were packing their church every week because they didn't have to social distance. They're packing their church every week, and they began to sense, and they began to see that in the life of that church, people were showing up for the worship, but they weren't showing up for Jesus. People were showing up for the worship, but they weren't showing up for each other. It's that basic thing that God says, you need to love me and display how you love me by the way you love other people. They saw that really ultimately wasn't happening. Now, it looked good, but it wasn't good. The leadership of that church saw that, and their pastor said, "Okay, well, we're not going to worship. We're going to worship, but we're not going to have music. We're going to cut that out." And so they did, and they did it for an extended period of time. It wasn't like one Sunday or a few services. It was
like 6 months.
It was a long, extended period of time. When they came back, Matt Redman wrote the words to this song. When the music fades and all is stripped away, I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship because it's all about you. And
we need to bring that back.
It's such a tremendous song.
I heard Brandon Lake do it the other day.
4-part harmony.
But here's the thing.
We might do it.
Here's the thing. Whenever worship ceases to be all about God, it becomes just as much idolatry as whenever they were sacrificing people's children to Baal. Just as bad, just as disgusting in the eyes of God, when it's about our preference. And that is whether your preference is the new style that seems to be popular right now in 2020, or if that is singing Charles Wesley hymns that are 300 years old, which, by the way, one of the greatest songwriters of all time still today is Charles Wesley. I'm not trying to throw shade on any style of music, but when your style and your preference for that style exceeds your desire to honor God, you have an idolatry problem even within your worship.
I think worship should prompt us to do something. So I know that the most powerful times in our house has been whenever we're having a conversation with each other and God shows up and we're just talking about something that we're passionate about, and like there's nothing else to do but to pick up my guitar and sing. Like I'm prompted to just do the thing that I was created to do. And maybe for somebody there's nothing else to do but just to go talk to somebody because they're a people person, or there's nothing else to do but go build a fence with their buddy that doesn't know who Jesus is, but can build fences really good.
If you're feeling that, you could come to my house and build a fence.
If you want to build a fence, Nathan needs one. But like when I'm aligned with God, I'm prompted to do something that I'm passionate about. And out of that passion, more people get passionate because we use that passion to fire people up. And like Nathan was saying, we don't want to just fire them up one time and the fire burns out pretty quick. We want to keep throwing logs in that fire. We have to start a fire with something hot.
Light the fire.
Like you need a fire starter. You need a match and some. I don't recommend gasoline, but I've seen it done. It's dangerous. But lighter fluid or cardboard or paper, we got to have that fire starter. But you got to keep throwing stuff in there to keep it going and to keep it hot. And every once in a while, the fire starts to burn out, and you need something hot to get it back going again. And that's why we do church, and that's why we do big conferences and events like that, and big things within our church to kind of keep that fire going. But throughout your week, the word is that kindling. The word is keeping that fire going throughout the week, and we can get some gasoline on it come Sunday. But to keep that going, we got to keep in alignment with God every single day.
Yeah.
Something I read this week to go right along with that was a quote that said, worship begins in your heart, not on your lips. And that hit me. I'm like, you know what? That's
from
so
the
true.
abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes. And it just goes right along with that alignment. And worship is a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's all about your obedience to God, your actions, your words. It's your heart before it's your lips.
That's good.
And the truth is we can't rely on your fire. We can't rely on whatever church you're going to, the worship pastor there, the worship leaders there. We can't rely on the radio to bring us into worship. It's all about what we've been talking about, those unseen in-between moments of our faith, walking this stuff out day by day.
Right. And here's the hard reality is that we only have so much gas in the tank.
Right.
I mean, we spend a lot of time through the week trying to make sure that when we hit this stage, that we have everything we can give. But we run out of gas.
Right.
Right.
And so if anybody is relying on us, we're going to fail you. Yeah, we're going to fail you every time. Right. Every time. Because we're going to do something that you weren't wanting, or we're going to say something that didn't hit you just right. We're going to, we might step on your toes. Ethan got blessed the other night and he stepped on some people's toes, but they needed it. And that's kind of where I think some of what we have to be aware of when we're up here is that it's not about us. Mm-hmm. And it's easy sometimes to make it about us. I know Ethan and I one time, and I don't know if he remembers this conversation or not. He probably does. Ethan's like the best guitar player I've ever. Like, I don't know anybody that can shred like he can on a guitar. He can play anything. He can play whatever he wants.
That's not true.
It is true. But Ethan and I were having a conversation about, okay, what are we really doing? And I actually told Ethan to tone it down. I actually told him to tone it down because we have to not make it about us and what we can do and what we can bring to this room, because we got to bring what God wants us to bring. It's got to be excellent. It's got to sound good. But if somebody is on the team and they're trying to make it about them, it's our job as their pastors to say, hey, let's tone that down just a little bit, because we have to be all about what God wants right now.
Worship from the stage is still service. It's still
Still
obviously
worship.
Serving God, but serving who's in the audience there, whether it's online or in person or what have you. Serving the song, we've talked about that a lot. Like, you can have somebody who can shred, but what if that doesn't fit the song, what the song needs, what the message of the song is bringing?
Right. We played with a drummer one time that and this was way back. This was like back in the youth group days, but it's like every place he could put a fill, he put a fill. And
That reminds me of I was in a band and we counted, and he had 23 fills in a 4-minute song.
And that's and
It's
and
efficient.
that in my mind as a worship pastor, in my mind I'm thinking, okay, dude, we got to have a conversation, because what are you doing this for? What are you doing it for?
Yeah.
Because I would rather have somebody that can just keep a straight beat and never put a fill in, because I want God to move.
You want God to be central
Absolutely.
to what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything to be distracting.
Now, the other side of that is when you get on the other side of the stage and you're in the crowd, your heart has to be the same way. Your heart has to be the same way, because if it's not, then you're not going to connect with that worship team. You're not going to connect with that message. You know, a lot of times people say, well, Spirit just isn't moving in that church anymore. Really? Because he's moving in all kinds of places other than in you.
There was like 35 people at the altar. I don't know what you missed, you know?
Yeah, but a lot of times it's the reason why we miss a move of God is because our hearts are not focused on Him. They're focused on something that we want or something else. And here's why this is so important. I'll just share a little story. When I was a youth pastor in Kansas City area, we had a church, and in that church, this family came every week. I mean, they were faithful servants, and they attended, and they were engaged, and it was awesome. And our worship band was amazing. We had a guy that was, as a worship leader, he was so talented, just so talented. And this family got a job opportunity, make a lot more money, but they had to move to another city. And so one of the things we talked to them about before they moved was like, hey, you got to make sure you find a church really well. I know this is where you're going. Here's 10 churches in your area that I have connections with, that have great pastors and, solid, Bible preaching churches. And I can remember about after the 4th or 5th time that they came back, this was by this time, more than a year later, they would come back to visit family and visit church. I said, hey, do you guys have a church yet? And they go, we just can't find. I'm not talking about weeks. I'm not talking about months. I'm talking about well over a year, probably 2 years into this. They had not found a church because they hadn't found a church where they connected to the worship like what they were used to at our church. And I didn't take that as a compliment. I took that as a great sadness. Because for all that time, while their kids were growing up in youth group, while their kids were growing up and falling into these temptations, and I knew it and they knew it was going on, we were still a part of their lives. They were not connected to a church because the church didn't give them the experience they wanted in worship. And
that hurts my heart.
And that's the kind of thing that happens. For me, as I've traveled different places in the United States, as I've traveled different places around the world, I've said to myself, every time I go into a church, particularly if it's not stylistically my preference, I discipline my heart to say, okay, God, how can I honor you? Even if I don't know the language. God, how can I honor you? Even if I'm not familiar with this song. God, this is not about me and my comfort or my familiarity. This is about me giving you honor. So how can I do that here and now?
What a better picture, what a good picture of dying to self. I mean, laying down your preferences to worship God, that's a huge deal. They said it in that conference that we were a part of. He said, a dead person doesn't care or something to that effect. Like when we're dead to ourselves, like it's not about what we prefer. It's about what is God doing through me, through this service, through this song, through whatever. Right. Look around and look at how people are engaging. If we base it all on how we feel about something, we have a narrow view of what God is doing. We have a narrow view of what worship looks like. Like when we look, I have to pray this prayer sometimes when I see somebody just getting after it in worship. And I'm like, I don't know. I used to be real judgy about that. Like, I don't know about that. That seems a little like a show, and I have to say this prayer sometimes because I can catch myself in that, to just like, let that be real and let me not care so much. What am I doing? Where am I at with God? If I'm looking up to him, I'm not looking around and judging what's happening in the room so much. I'm trying to connect and be a part of, this experience as a whole. I think that's so super important. And I do think that it all comes back to those in-between moments. Like what are we doing outside of this room? What are we doing on, Tuesday? And so that kind of makes me want to ask this other question. How do you guys worship in your personal life? I think this would be helpful to people who look to you guys as like, man, they've got it all together with all that. Like but don't know themselves how to create kind of systems in their life to bring them into this worshipful kind of mode throughout their daily life. So what do you guys do that maybe isn't common, like behind the scenes, under the hood of like, maybe people don't know about how you guys engage in worship just outside of here?
And while they're thinking of that answer, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this on Facebook or anything like that, write it in the comments.
Yeah, definitely.
Share with us how you worship. Write it in the comments. It can be a word, it can be a paragraph, whatever it looks like. I'd love to see 100 comments because I want to see the different ways in which we can worship. In fact, if you share your testimony about how you worship and how you connect with God outside of Sundays or Wednesdays or church, whatever, then I guarantee you it's going to inspire someone else to say, I didn't even know I could worship doing the laundry.
Yeah,
I didn't even know I could worship in that way. And so please take some time to write in the comments how you worship. We would love to read that, love to see that.
I want to hear from everybody. So I'll start and then we can just go down the line. Is that cool? We can do that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just start from the beginning. In 2014, Kelly asked me to speak at a United night. And I don't even know, it was right after you shared that video of, I think it was Bethel. And they were talking about like a huge worship experience that they had and it was just really powerful. And anyways, you asked me to speak, and so the title of what I was talking about was "We Get to Serve," because we say that and we mean it, and it's awesome. God gives us awesome opportunities here at all of our campuses to serve other people and show His love, which is great. But what I spoke about was I get to serve my family, and that was hard for me because I really liked serving here and being a leader, and what that felt good, to do good things and to have the leaders say, hey, good job. It was a very selfish thing. It was all about me at that time. But anyways, 2014 in May, Kelly asked me to speak, and that's what I spoke about. And I was just graduating with my master's in education because I was wanting to teach. And so eventually I taught at some preschools, and then I ended up teaching in public school. And just kind of, we get to serve, that was kind of in the back of my mind, but not really. And anyways, what ended up happening is in the public school, my heart I loved my job. I miss my people at Easter. Hello, Easter people. I love you and I miss you. And I just felt like that was what I was made for. I was made to be a kindergarten art teacher. I mean, come on, that's like the best job ever. But something in my heart was unsettled, okay? And I don't know what it was. He knew what it was, but I didn't. And once he shared it with me, I was like, are you crazy? And he said, what if you went to school for all those years to be with our kids every day, to homeschool our kids? And I'm like, no, that's not why I went to school. Like instant shutdown. And so, as time went on and God really started revealing some things to my heart, I'm like, oh, am I supposed to homeschool? Like, no, I'm supposed to be the kindergarten art teacher, And he just made it really clear, like, this is what you're supposed to do. And so despite all my better judgment in my mind because you know how it is. People make fun of people, and I was one of those people growing up, Those people. And so I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. And so we did, and we do, and we're entering our third year of homeschooling. And that to me is one of the biggest ways that I can worship at home, by serving my kids knowledge about the world around us and about who God is and who He's created us to be, and daily life routines that are going to help them be good adults when they grow up, and laundry, like what you talked about, and how to be a good friend. And that's what worship looks like in our home. And of course it involves music and dancing and silly and instruments and all kinds of stuff like that. But constantly having that thought of, I get to serve my kids. I get to show my kids who Jesus is throughout daily, mundane, things that I think really don't matter. That's what it looks like in our home Monday through Thursday. And then when Ethan comes home and, we have our weekend, then it looks like, having meals together, cooking meals together, and just doing very unified family things. That, I think, if I could wrap up like what worship looks like in our home, it's just being a tight-knit family, and making sure that our conversations, our thoughts, our relationships with each other, everything we do, again, just points back, to God and gives him glory. So that was a really long story. I'm sorry.
That was great. Ethan?
I don't do any of that she's talking about.
Yeah, you look confused. So
It's like, who does she live with?
Yeah,
Surprise!
she's living a double life. I would piggyback off of that. And I think for me, worship is, I obviously get into a place with God when I'm doing the things I'm passionate about, playing music, writing music. But something that's really been on my heart is teaching people how to worship. Because that is, well, now it's like my actual
proper hand raising technique.
Proper hand raising techniques. You've got all the different ones. But now it's like it's my profession to do that, teaching people, bringing them into worship and teaching them how to. But even before that, it's how do I teach my little boys and my little girl what it's like to live a consistent life of worship to Jesus, and how do we align ourselves with him? Because I can teach that to them by being at church every Sunday and living out a rigid plan for life, or I can teach that through consistency in love and compassion and grace, and still being consistent with showing them what responsibility is and priority, but also like sometimes it's okay to kind of live outside the lines of life. A lot of times we want to live in our box, and we're comfortable. We learned about comfortability in our one of our sessions yesterday, and the what was it? The easiest way to motivate people is to make them be comfortable. I can't remember the exact quote, but that's how we motivate people is to make them more comfortable. And if you look at ads in life, it's always about how to make life more comfortable. It's never about how to like, especially anymore, how to go further in uncomfort. It's not something that is motivating to people. They want to be comfortable. They want to be at home. So that is a thing that's uncomfortable for me, but that's also how I worship, is teaching people how, because it's easy to just settle into your own giftings and to be okay with just playing the guitar or the drums or whatever, and not necessarily sharing that gifting, because sharing that gifting is uncomfortable and it's hard and it's difficult, because maybe you have the wrong answer, or maybe you don't want, if I teach them this, they'll be as good or better than I am. And that's a scary place to be sometimes, because you're handing that off. Me and Nate have talked about in our professional lives, and I know that everybody on this stage can relate to that, because I know your guys' personalities. In our professional lives, when we were working our regular old jobs, and Carrie still does, but we want to be the best. We want to be the best. If we ever got fired or we quit, we want it to hurt that company, because they're missing out on a good worker at their company. We want it to hurt. But here, it's not like that. If something happened to me, I want this place to go on and thrive. I want this place to be better without me than, you know what I mean? I want to pour into people so much that if I left, it would be seamlessly transitioned, and the next worship leader comes up, or the next kids worker comes up, and I feel like that's the heart of our church is just pouring into people. It's a scary place to be, but it's also another place that I like to worship because it's if I do that, then I can see myself in those people, and I get to see myself in my kids when I do that because I'm teaching them. Whenever we get to teach them something and they bring it back to us somehow, this is what I learned and this is what I did, and they applied it to their life. I'm like, that's a win. But it's also how I worship because I'm getting to watch, and that's how God is with us, and that's what worship is. Again, He's getting to watch Himself come through out of us. So I don't know if that answered it, but that's what I got.
You did it. Nathan?
So how do we worship outside of this? I know for us as a family, it looks different than it does for Bethany and Ethan. We all kind of come from the same roots, but we all took different paths, and I think that is good. Like sometimes I worship God. Just part of what I'm doing now at the church is what Ethan was talking about, passing things off and the insecurity and the frightening part of that. And I'm kind of living through that right now as I've handed the torch over to Ethan to do the majority of the worship and making that happen here. And I'm moving more towards working on our finances and working out. Like yesterday, I was working with our phone company to try to come up with how do we get something better, a better product from them for what we do here. I like to think that I worship through that. As I'm looking at a spreadsheet, or I'm looking at the finances of the church, and I'm helping somebody else with their finances and trying to help them see areas that they can do better or do worse. I don't want people to do worse in their finances. That didn't come out right, but I know that Kelly loves to he loves to research, and he loves to just go down these rabbit holes of what God is teaching him and what God can do. Well, that I don't get into that like he does, but I love to see how numbers can come together at the bottom and how we can learn from that and how we can take different things. So I worship a little bit, yeah. And Bethany's like gross. but that's becoming a way that I worship. It's not as out front. It's not necessarily on the stage every week. But I feel like it's just as important for me to worship in that as it is to raise my hand and play a guitar and because God has moved that. You know what I mean? I still do that. But it's also worshiping outside of this is also sometimes you'll see me just get in my car and go drive. Sometimes I got to worship by myself, and I got to just get away. I've really enjoyed lately at our home. One thing that I kind of regret sometimes is that I don't play the guitar at home. Like I said, I learned to play the guitar for a purpose, and that's kind of how my life has been. Is that I'm gonna do something because I see a need, and that's why I do it. I don't necessarily do it because I'm passionate about learning all the cool riffs and all the things. I've even told Ethan that. I'm like, that's what you do, man. I do this. And so that doesn't come to the house very often. But the way that I worship at home is just being a dad for my kids, being a husband for my wife. One thing that I've tried to do our whole marriage is I've tried to outserve my wife. I've tried to do more laundry.
How's that worked?
I feel like I've done a pretty good job of it.
That's a question for Carrie.
Yeah, I've tried to. We're still married, so I guess that works out.
I haven't done that. Sorry, babe.
But I try to make sure that and Carrie holds me to it. Even if I am so tired, I'm about to fall asleep. I'm exhausted, and she's like, we have to pray together before we go to bed. We have to read a little bit of God's word. Sometimes it's have to. I'm not going to lie. But yes, we do get to. But I'm seeing that after our oldest is 16. I'm seeing that after all these years of doing that at home and making sure that God as the center of our home. It looks different because we both have jobs. We're not in, Bethany got an opportunity to stay at home, which is awesome. I think we all kind of have those different paths. But for us, when we come home after, of course, COVID has kind of messed with this, but when we used to come home, it was a big deal to make sure that we ate together as a family. We don't run so hard that we don't sit down together and talk about our day. And I want to worship God through knowing my kids, not just knowing that they're in my house, but knowing who they are, knowing what they do, what they're passionate about, what they're excited about. Probably one of the greatest things for me was when and Bethany and Ethan are going to have this happen at some point because their kids are younger than our kids, but it was an awesome moment when I realized that my son could hold us together on the drum set. I'm going to cry because that is, to me, that's God saying, this is the next generation. This is what you've been working for, is to see your son not only excited about playing the drums, but excited about coming to church to do it. We've worked really hard to make this a place where our staff kids don't hate it. I want my kids to enjoy being here. I want to enjoy being here. I don't want my job as a pastor to overarch the fact that we're still loving people and we're still doing this because we're passionate about it. It's not a job. I would go back to a non-ministerial job if that's what it took to continue to do this. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I think the worship has almost started to come full circle because I'm seeing my kids do this, and Kelly's kids are doing the same thing. They're leading worship. They're playing the piano, and Max and Reed and Eva are going to do the same thing, and Ty's going to do the same thing, and your kids are going to do that. You got a ukulele
moment,
kid.
Yeah, we had a moment the other day where it was Max on the drums.
I have a recording.
Yeah, Reed was over here messing around on the piano. Dexter was messing around on the ukulele. It was like baby worship team. I loved it.
It was awesome.
It was the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, and that for me has been crazy to see because it's not just a video anymore. We have videos like that too, and you guys were part of this. But it's not just now. I'm standing here like last night. I was standing here leading our Celebrate Recovery and Worship, our LP Recovery and Worship, and my 16-year-old son is back here keeping it steady, keeping me in check on my tempo, making sure that the foundation of this band is doing what we need to do.
It's only because he couldn't rush because his hand is hurt.
Right.
Well, and Kelly wasn't there, but Reese led all of Fuel last night. It was incredible,
right. And
it's incredible to see that.
And so for me, I think worship is the way that I worship when nobody's looking is just that consistent. Just consistent. Just I'm there. I'm there for my kids. I'm there for my wife. I'm there for my friends. I mess up a lot, but I want Ethan to know we've been doing this for a long time together, but he knows that if he needs something, I'm here. There's a consistency that I've tried to worship in, and maybe that's a comfort for me, and that. Because Kelly's good at getting me out of my comfort zones.
You're welcome.
Yes, but I wouldn't. My consistency is better because of it. If that I don't know that I made sense with that, but I'm consistently better, and I want that to be what resounds in it, in all the changes and all the things. I'm worshiping God through what I'm doing every day, all the time.
Faithfulness.
Yeah.
Steadfastness. I like that. Carrie?
Okay, my thoughts are all over the place, so I'm going to try to make this connect. For me, it is also in the vein of just being consistent and pouring into the next generation, whatever that may look like. And our boys, who are 16 and 11 now, they're our first ministry, and they're the ones that we pour into the most. And then, the next generation of worshipers, like you were saying, but I naturally turn to music in my worship. There are powerful songwriters out there that write lyrics that can just touch you and help you connect with God in powerful ways. So passing that on to the next generation, just the power and the passion of worship is where I'm at. But also, I'm a teacher, and I consider our school part of my mission field and what I do. And, kids won't learn anything if they don't feel loved. And so you have to work on building those relationships, and they have to know that they're loved before they can learn anything. And so I consider that my mission field as well, sharing the love of God as much as I can in the public school setting, just loving on kids and our own children too.
That's good.
I think that's all I wanted to say.
That's good. That's awesome.
I know we probably need to start wrapping this up because this has gone on for a little while. But one thing I want to make sure we talk about before we close is it almost sounds like you joined the worship team by being birthed into my family or this family. And that's not how it happens, right? So if someone wants to be a part of our worship team,
You can marry in.
you can marry in. Yeah. And in
Another
fact,
option. Third option.
I've got 4 kids. You guys have 2. No. How do people join the team? And when I say join the team, I don't just mean the worship team, because here's something, and I hope Graham will appreciate this. I grew up, my dad was a sound guy. He had a sound company. It doesn't matter how good of a musician you are. If I'm on the back, the board in the back, the soundboard, I can make you sound terrible. And if you are just kind of a mediocre musician, I can make you sound really good. So the worship team here at Life Point is actually more than just the vocalists and the musicians. And so really all kinds of people can be a part of this ministry that exists to magnify God and to lead others to magnify God. How does someone join your team?
Well, first, I think it starts with a conversation with me or Nate or anybody on the team, really, because we have musicians and we have singers, but in my eyes, everybody on the stage is a worship leader. I get to pastor that team, and Nate has pastored that team for a long time. And but when we're on the stage, we're leading everybody. You have a responsibility to lead everybody in the sanctuary or wherever you're at. Maybe you're playing an event somewhere and it's outside. I don't know. But you're leading those people into worship. So everybody on the stage is a worship leader. So just talking to those people and because sometimes it can be kind of intimidating to talk to the leader or the what you perceive as the leader, but you might be able to talk to that vocalist, or you might be able to talk to the drummer or somebody that's maybe in the background a little bit. But really, without every key person on the stage, it's not a team, So we have a lot of vocalists and we have a lot of instrumentalists. And I've said this a lot, and I don't mean it offensive, but it can maybe come off offensive. I don't need every person on the stage. I want them here. But part of the want that Nathan and I, for sure, and I learned this from him, part of the want for people to be up here is for their heart to be in the right place. So it has to be a conversation first, because me personally, I need to see your heart and where you're at. And along inside of that is service to the church. Get plugged in to other places and show me and show our church, not just the people on the stage, but show our church that you're interested in this place. You're interested in them as human beings, and you're interested in them knowing who Jesus is, because that's what a worship leader is. And I would venture to say that every person that's waving to cars outside and every person that's greeting is a worship leader.
Absolutely.
Because we heard it said yesterday or the day before, in our conference, I'm sorry I keep going to that, but it's just fresh in my mind. The people that come in and sit down, they may remember a song that you do. They're most likely not going to remember a sermon. They might, hopefully. That sticks, and that goes for all of our speakers. Hopefully something that you said. They're not going to remember 45 minutes of talking for sure.
I don't know why, but
but so they're probably not going to remember what happens in the service. They're going to remember maybe some big things, but what they are going to remember is the handshake that they got before they got in the
or elbow bump during COVID.
Sometimes even before they get out of their car, somebody's greeting them. They're going to remember the wavers on the side of the building. They're going to remember the friendly faces when they walk in the door. And as they leave, they're going to remember those things. Those are contexts of worship. So all of those people are leading in worship because, again, we're aligning ourselves with God. And so to join the worship team, as you will, it's a conversation with us, and it's a heart thing. Like, I need to see your heart.
One of the differences, I think, and sorry to cut you off, but one of the differences between all the areas is that nobody goes down and picks their kids up and claps for the children's worker.
Yeah.
But every Sunday morning, if you're on this stage, somebody is likely to clap. And we have to know that the people that are up here understand that clapping is for God. So that's why that conversation needs to happen. That's why there's a relationship aspect in this.
You know, in a way, it's saying like this. We have a sign on that door that says it's an honor or privilege to serve on this stage. You know, if it's a greater honor and privilege for people to see you use your gift than it is for you to serve God, you're not ready for service.
Absolutely correct.
Well, and that's not worship. That's
self-serving,
and it's you wanting to idolize yourself, and for other people to do the same thing, because you're not at that point aligning them with Jesus. You're aligning them with you and where you want the service to go.
It's a scary place to be.
Yeah, it is.
So once someone's heart is, you know, we see that their heart's in the right place, they still want to be on the stage. They want to be a part of what's going on here. How do they do that? Do they just sign up on one Sunday, next Sunday they're leading songs, or how does that work?
Well, that's a long process as well. I mean, they're definitely not just going to be leading songs the first Sunday they're up here unless something miraculous happens, and I've seen that out of churches. Yeah, I've seen that at churches before, and it's like, whoa, that's incredible. And some of that's just a leap of faith, and I'm just talking at this point.
So what do we do to get somebody?
What
on
do
the
we
stage?
do? So one of the things, we have a conversation, and I kind of discern through that sometimes, and figure out if that person needs to be in the worship team, because you can tell pretty quick a lot of times. So I'll talk to them about what their passion is, and how what they do, really. Do you play guitar? Do you sing? Do you play the drums? What's the thing that you're wanting to talk to me about? And then invite them to practices, which I'm not going to say on the air here, because I don't want you guys to start showing up at practices.
We love you.
Practice for us needs to be very focused, but it's also a good time for us to have a little bit of discipleship and fellowship before we get on the stage and practice. And it's a time for just getting to know the rest of the worship team.
So basically, we're going to have a conversation, and then we're going to invite them to come be a part of a practice, and do that consistently for a little bit of a time, so that we can get to know them and get, because this is a coherent group. I don't know if you notice that there's a lot of things that happen up here, and if we're not together, then it's off. And so we want people to come and be a part of, kind of be in the group. You know what I'm saying?
We do a lot of cutting up where we just tell jokes and
say it's not so,
and just have fun. And I mean, that happens back there.
Like, ha 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 ha! Oh my gosh, we got to get on stage. Everybody, rein it in.
I'm talking.
There's the announcements. We got to go.
I'm talking about, guys, rein it in. It's getting inappropriate. We got to go out on the stage. And that 2 seconds later, opening the door. I mean, that's how it can get sometimes. And that's all fun. But imagine living life and trying to just. I can only speak as a worship pastor because that's where I'm at. But imagine trying to do something serious with people that you can't have fun with.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I think that's a big aspect of what makes this team what it is the fun that we do have.
So some of that is as you enter the team, you
build relationships.
You kind of need to start building relationships with people in the team, and don't have your nose in the air like you're better or whatever, because that'll get you off the team.
But also don't hide
quick.
in the corner either, because we'll pull you out of there really quick.
Yeah, you need to have some courage and some boldness to go to the next place. But, like I said, you're not going to start the first Sunday, most likely, leading a song or getting that guitar solo or whatever. But it's consistent over time. You might be the next worship leader.
Yeah.
You might be the guy that's over all the guitar players, sending them videos and how to, and you might be the we don't have a music director as of yet, but you might be the next music director, the person that's cueing the click tracks, and the person that's cueing the band on telling them where we're going, and the person that's discerning where the worship leader for that Sunday is going in the service. So
good.
And if you guys listening or watching, any of you are interested in it, of course, join us on a Sunday morning, have that conversation with somebody on the worship team, or just send us an email. You can send it to podcast@lifepointlebanon.com.
Or you can just text Ethan
Yeah. I'm trying to protect Ethan right now.
I was getting ready to tell Graham to edit that out.
But just send an email to podcast@lifepointlebanon.com if you're interested in that, and we'll get you connected with the right people.
Just so you know, we need more vocalists. We need more musicians. We need more worship
guitar
teams.
players.
Don't let anything I said be a discouragement, but an encouragement to say, okay, he is a person that I can talk to, because I want to talk to you about worship.
Yeah,
I want to have those conversations so that we can build our teams, because we don't know where God's going to go, but I do know that God's going to go bigger than this place.
Right.
And we need more teams. We need more pastors all over our church.
Right.
Whether it's a pastor over worship or a pastor over just the parking lot greeters.
Right.
We need those people.
Be ready if you want to talk about being on this team, on Ethan's team. Be ready for a conversation about being part of more teams than just this team.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Every one of us have done everything, including clean up the bathroom or clean up whatever.
Just leave it at that.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well,
but
here's the deal.
It's like it. Do you have a passion for it, or do you just want to be on stage? And there's
a distinction there for sure.
I'm the maintenance guy here. So I'm not just up here playing guitar and writing songs all the time and doing whatever I want throughout the week. I do a healthy bit of that. But it's also like sometimes you just got to do the thing. You got to just do the job.
Right.
And we all have served in kids ministry and youth ministry, and a lot of us still do. And Nathan every week is back there counting money. A lot of, things that we're putting in place that we're still having to do, because we're not just called to be up here getting the glory. Right. We're aligning ourselves with God and doing what He has asked us to do to make this experience happen every week.
If you come here on a Sunday and the toilet doesn't work quite right, it's probably Ethan that's going to fix it.
Did I say I was a maintenance guy? I take that back.
So if you guys are interested in all of that, send an email, podcast@LifePointLebanon.com.
We just scared every single person off.
But what I did hear as you guys were all talking, this is a great way to start to close it up. I heard you guys all telling how you guys worship personally. And what I think a lot of people will see when we talk about the body of Christ, we categorize people: worship, greeter, preacher, whatever. But this is all kinds of different stuff showcased in how we express that. We all operate in different ways than what maybe is seen on a Sunday morning. And so it's kind of cool to see that expression of, okay, well, this is worship beyond what maybe just like my default thinking is. And I also heard a lot of the greatest joy in my worship to God is in the things that are seemingly the most uncomfortable. And I think that that's true for all of us. And it might be a thing where somebody's watching and listening and they're like, I want to do that, but it makes me really feel uncomfortable. And so I would encourage you guys, if somebody's listening and watching and doesn't know if that's for them, to send the email anyway, to make the connection, have the conversation anyway, to just see if God has something for you there. Because stepping out in faith and stepping out in that deeper worship, even if it doesn't end up with you being on stage, it might help you find your purpose and your calling for wherever you're supposed to serve the body of Christ, to serve God in whatever way that he has designed you to do. So what I want to do to close it out is we have a question here. Can you prepare for worship? If so, how? What I want to do is I want to have each of us, starting with Kelly, to just a few seconds of encouragement. This podcast will drop on a Wednesday. Not everybody will hear it on a Wednesday. I think it'll be a Wednesday. I don't remember. But the first Wednesday of every month. That's right. Yeah, that's the schedule. So they'll have a few days coming into Sunday morning to be listening to this, to think through, how can I prepare my heart? How can I prepare my life for worship on the weekend through worship in daily life? So just a few seconds of encouragement from all of us, and then we'll close it out.
Be still. Just sometimes we overuse that verse, but just be still. Create some space so that you can hear from God. Create some space and give yourself permission to just lean into your trust, to lean into your faith. That is where real worship often begins.
And I would say do that and then find joy. You know, there is good and joy in every single day that God has given you. And sometimes it's really hard work to find it, but it's there. It's there. And so just have that conversation with God and say, God, man, today stinks. Can you help me find the joy in something? I promise you, he will. And so be still and then find joy.
Just going back to what I said earlier, the first thing that you say in the morning is giving thanks to God and asking him to be with you throughout your day, just aligning yourself. So I guess alignment with God.
That's good. All of that's really good. It gets to me, and it's like, okay, what am I going to say? But I think what's going through my mind is kind of the be still thing, but pause. And I say that, give God just a second to help you with that decision. Give God just a few minutes to help you with what you're about to do in the days leading up to. Our goal is for you not to just worship when you come in these doors. Our goal is for you to worship every day. And I feel like that worship happens in the decisions that you make. Am I going to do this or that? God, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to make this decision? And God, please direct me. And that's what I would say. Because I know we have a lot of people that come to our church that are dealing with, they deal with addictions and they deal with different things that they're wrestling with on a day-to-day basis. And I think just pause and let God help you. Even when you're not here, just pause.
In the book of James, it says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. So I want to encourage people to turn to God when things are bad, but also turn to God when things are good, in an act of worship, because worship changes your perspective.
Very good. All good stuff. And I get to go last because I set it up that way. And now I got to think of something cool. Now, I would say I'm preparing for a message that I'm speaking this Sunday, and it's on praying the promises of God. Prayer. Drench everything in prayer. We have a tendency to pray the problem in our lives and agree with Satan about all of the stuff that he's dragging us through. And I think that we all need to declare that God is good, declare that God has more for us than we think, and declare going into a Sunday morning worship service that he has something for me there. So I would say that to close that out. Super important.
I think one thing that is incredible is when the people that come into this place that have been living it all week they bring energy because they're worshiping from the overflow that is in their life. They're not coming in here for that booster shot anymore. They're coming in ready to serve, ready to hear from God, but ready to serve other people that need the booster shot that they got a year ago.
Right. That's good.
So I think that's
good. And if you guys are any listeners out there who need something specific to be prayed for, I want to encourage you guys to send an email to prayer@lifepointlebanon.com, and we will get you on that list of our prayer list for our prayer team to help you out with that. And if you have any suggestions or any thoughts on future episodes, any comments that maybe you didn't want to put online about how you engage in worship in your own life, something you just want to share, a testimony of how worship has affected you and changed your life, just living from a posture of worship, send that stuff to us as well. You can send that to podcast@lifepointlebanon.com along with your request to be on the worship team immediately the next Sunday. Leading worship. Yeah. But that's it for episode 20. We want to, again, to encourage you guys to share this, to rate, review, and just kind of make this available to as many people as you possibly can. Put it on social media, whatever you got. We would love to get the word out on this, and we would also love to hear from you about just kind of what's going on in your life, what you would like to hear us talk about in future episodes. And that is it for To The Point. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
And we thank you for having us on.
Thank you for listening to the To The Point podcast from LifePoint Church. For more information about LifePoint, visit us on the web at lifepointlebanon.com. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast, and be sure to share it with your friends on social media. Thanks for joining us for To The Point.